Do I really need a ballistic helmet? A bump helmet should be fine, right? What if I just get an airsoft ballistic helmet so people think I have a ballistic helmet? This is trash, you're just ripping off Micah Mayfield's last video intro. But Micah has the dopest intros. I'm gonna do it anyway. Am I gonna have to edit this one myself, or is Nick gonna do it? I guess I'll edit it myself. Night vision's so gay. I think I wasted my money on this helmet. I should've bought a 7th rifle. I'm glad I have this helmet to protect my head because I don't have food to eat for a week. Is it cringe to shout Shooting Surplus is a sponsor here? I'm gonna do it anyway. Dirty Civilian gets you 5% off everything at their store, and there's newsletter sign up in the description. What would Garand Thumb do? Is Charlie the main character of the Garand Thumb channel? No one's put a pumpkin in this helmet and shot it at close range on YouTube yet. It's probably not legit. I probably shouldn't make any videos on YouTube unless I've been shot at. Does getting shot at by a farmer when I was 15 count as combat experience? Nick has red hair, and that's not approved in the company handbook. Did Mike always have tattoos? I think he started getting tattoos when he started getting buff. I want tattoos. I need to get buff. No, wait, I'm scared of needles. Everything's LARPing till it's not, right? This is ridiculous. Why am I still spinning in circles?
Do I need a ballistic helmet as a civilian? Today? Probably not. But the same can be said for just about any kind of gear that we have up here. Do I need it today? No, I don't. Do I need a rifle today? No. A suppressor? Probably not. Concealed carry pistol? Doubt it. A med kit with a tourniquet? Hopefully not, probably not. Plate carrier with body armor, with all the accoutrements and comms gear? Probably not. But that's not the point. Someone once said, fools decide what is necessary based on immediate risk, but wise men choose what is needed based on potential consequence. I made that up, it was me. Is there a potential that owning and acquiring and perfecting the use of all of this equipment is going to be necessary in my timeline? Maybe, maybe not, but just looking at the nature of the world and the cycle of civilization and just how history goes, you'd be hard pressed to find someone that doesn't think that in their kids' lifetime or their grandchildren's lifetime that this stuff won't be necessary for them. So by acquiring and perfecting the use of this stuff, you are creating, especially if you pass it on to your kids, you're creating a lineage that values this kind of equipment and understands how to use it. It's not just about what's going to happen in your life. It's about setting up your family long term to be able to understand the use of this equipment and to employ it in a wise fashion. The truth is, if you don't keep the flame of preparedness alive in your family, you're trusting someone else to do it for you in the future. That's lazy. And it's dangerous. Our founding fathers understood that the modern armament of the people, guys just like you and me, families just like ours, was a necessary check and balance to run away evil and out of control government. At the time of the ratification of the Constitution, normal civilians like us were in possession and ownership of absolute weapons of war and all the accoutrements that were available to them at the time. They owned naval vessels, they owned cannons, explosives, and all modern arms that were available to them at the time. In fact, many of them rivaled, if not topped, some of the best standing armies at the time in terms of the weapons that they possessed and that they owned and that they were proficient with. So you see, owning all of this stuff, it's not wild, it's not crazy, it's not radical. In fact, it's just a normal continuation of the vision of our founding fathers, period. So back to ballistic helmets. Maybe you're like me and you kind of acquired all these other things before jumping into armor for your noggin. That's completely understandable. So what we're going to talk about is why owning a ballistic helmet is important, and more importantly, where it should fall in your list of priorities in terms of all this stuff and gear that I need to acquire and be proficient with. So most of us understand the need to own a plate carrier with some rifle-rated plates. But one of the things that took me a little bit longer to kind of connect the dots with is how this is only half of the equation. Ultimately, you also have to protect your head as well. And in fact, if you're utilizing cover effectively while LARPing, when you shoot, or if you're trying to do anything, it's actually your head that is exposed first. Now, I've seen this to be true on the airsoft field, but there's plenty of other guys way more experienced than I who have used helmets and body armor in austere environments who can attest to the fact that what is going on your head and the level of protection that you have up here from either bullets or shrapnel, it's extremely important. Anytime you're popping out of cover, either from the side or over the top, God forbid, it's your head that is exposed. It has to be exposed pretty much for you to take a shot or to observe your surroundings. Now, when I first started looking into ballistic helmets, I thought I had to have a helmet that matched my level of plates, and ideally that would be an awesome thing. At the time, the peak of the ballistic helmets was the OpsCore Fast RF1, which comes in at right around $3,300. That's a steep price tag. That's more expensive than a basic PVS 14 for that matter. So it kind of pushed me away from ballistic helmets because I was like, oh, if my helmets can't stop the same thing that my plates can't stop or can stop, then what good is it? And then I had a good friend by the name of Mike Jones slide into my text messages because we do have each other on speed dial. And he set me straight.
You want to protect your dome, right? There's no quicker way to get in the forever box than taking a round through the head. Now, what are the chances of taking the round through the head? Not so high, but when you consider shrapnel, if we consider the possible enemies that you could be fighting, well, that's when it gets pretty important. So there's nothing that's going to end your life quicker than a 2-grain projectile from a bomb going off, traveling at 6,800 feet per second, traveling straight through your brain. So in conclusion, have a ballistic helmet. You don't want to, die. Here you go. In case you don't know what they look like, Drew.
So that kind of knocked me out of that line of thinking that I had to have the very best ballistic helmet in order to, take advantage of protection on my head. It's just not the case. The standard right now in the world is 3A ballistic protection on your head. That's what most ballistic helmets are. That's what this MTEK Strike is, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later. And keep in mind, owning a helmet is not just for protecting your head from bullets or shrapnel or frag or any of that stuff. It's actually to protect your head from impacts as well.
Cool.
Now, you could say, hey, I can get that out of a bump helmet. Yeah, absolutely, you could, and it'd be a whole lot cheaper. In fact, that's the route I went with first, is to get a bump helmet, and then I upgraded to a ballistic helmet. But ultimately, a ballistic helmet still provides you a level of impact protection, which is super important. The other thing to keep in mind is that ballistic helmets are lighter than they've ever been before. This MTEK Strike comes in at 2 pounds. A lot of the other options on the market are about that same weight, maybe a little bit more. And if you look back in history at all the different kinds of helmets that warriors used, they all come in, most of them come in at around 2 to 3 pounds, which is kind of crazy that the weight has stayed the same throughout history. Now, you can have like these giant Crusader warriors with the massive helms that came down. Those could go up to 7 pounds.
God wills it! God wills it!
But the heavier the helmet was, the greater the protection typically throughout history, but also it dwindled your ability to move. Your flexibility went down the drain. We've had 20 years at war to test what heavy helmets or what light helmets do to someone's neck or head, and we as civilians, just LARPing, benefit greatly from all the discoveries that have been made, and we have some of the best and lightest helmets that offer the most protection that any human has ever had in history. Helmets also give you the ability to run all these other cool attachments that give you greater capability as a person. You can attach night vision, you can attach ears with comms, you can attach lights, you can hold extra batteries, have IR strobes, signaling devices, the whole 9 yards. So owning a helmet is not just about protecting your head, it's another form of transporting and carrying gear that's easily and quickly accessible. So where should owning a ballistic helmet fall on your priority list as a civilian? Well, ultimately, you can't eat armor. So should you have food and water stored up for 3 to 6 months for every single individual in your household? Yeah, and I'm going to assume you guys already have that. I know you don't, but I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. If you don't yet, you should probably get on that. It's not as expensive as you think, and we're going to talk about that in a future video. But as far as ballistic protection on your head is concerned, once you have kind of everything else figured out, you have your food and water, you can sustain yourself and your family for a couple of months at least, you have a rifle, you have a handgun, you have basic med equipment and the know-how to employ it, then you can start looking at body armor, like in a plate carrier or a ballistic helmet. Keep in mind, a ballistic helmet is still useful even if you don't have night vision. In fact, you don't need a ballistic helmet to use night vision. You can get a bump helmet first, and that's actually what I did. Was that wrong? I don't know. I kind of toy back and forth with it. I can see it from both sides. See, if I went out and bought a ballistic helmet a year ago and I immediately put it on my head, it would offer me protection for the year that I've worn it, right? But it doesn't improve any particular skill set. So what I did was I got a bump helmet first so I could train with night vision for a year before I upgraded to a ballistic helmet. So whichever way you go, there's pros and cons to both sides. It's a great idea to get the protection for your head first, but there's also a lot of merit to getting a skill set underway for a full year or however long it takes you to save up the extra money to get a ballistic helmet. Now the cool thing is whenever I bought my bump helmet, I was able to turn around, sell it for 66 or 70% of what I invested into it, and then take those funds and put it towards my own ballistic helmet. So these MTEK strikes, they come in at about $1,200, give or take, with some tax, which means I could sell my Team Wendy bump helmet for, brand new they go for about $300. I could sell it easily for about $200, put that towards the ballistic helmet and get it for $1,000. Now there's a lot of ballistic helmets on the market that all come in different shapes and sizes and prices, and a video explaining all of that would take years, especially when you consider testing them, because it can get a little crazy once you start to actually shoot and test, especially considering the fact that there's actually no certification for helmets. There are NIJ standards that they can pass and that they can test, but there's not actually a certification process like there is for body armor and plates for ballistic helmets. But ultimately, the price discrepancy between a good ballistic helmet and a bump helmet is not that great. We're talking ballistic helmets in the $1,000-ish price range and bump helmets in the $200 to $300-ish price range. That's a price discrepancy of $700, $800. So even if you go with a bump, it shouldn't take too long for the average person on an average salary to save up a little bit extra, buy the ballistic helmet, and you should be good to go. Now, why did I go with the MTEK Strike? Well, because it looks cool. Just kidding. I've been in the market for a ballistic helmet for quite some time. I've done a ton of different research into all the different options available, and what intrigued me about the Strike is how simple it was. I've used a lot of different ballistic helmets over the years in LARPing, a lot, almost every single kind. That being said, when the Strike came out, I was intrigued by how light it was and how simple it was, and how there's not all these rails and all these different things on it that an average consumer or an average civilian would have to figure out in order to set it up appropriately. Most brands of helmets have proprietary rail systems, so figuring out, okay, what ears do I run on this thing? How do I attach it? Do I need something to modify to attach it? Does it have retention straps for my nods? Like, does it have the right kind of Wilcox shroud on it? Where do I put a light on it, and how do I attach it? And do I need to modify something to attach the light that I want onto it? Or can I only use one kind of light? And what's going on with the back of it? Like, how do I counterbalance my night vision? Every single one of these brands has a different system for connecting all this stuff, and if you're just getting into it and you don't have a ton of time and energy to put into it, or you don't have the money to mess up or experiment, well, something like the Strike makes a lot of sense because of how straightforward it is. You have just a couple of options, and I know people love to have tons of options, but I actually like things to be simple. So that's why I decided on this one, not because I personally don't understand the other systems, but because I wanted to see what does a very basic, easily understood system for civilians look like. So let's talk about how simple this system is. There are no rails. There's nothing. There is one way to attach ears to this helmet system. It is designed for the OpsCore amp arms. Now, do you have to actually run amps on this? No, you can order the arms separately. You can use something like the Axle advanced adapters to put any kind of ear pro you want on this. But I like the fact that it only had one option because, again, it simplifies it for the average consumer. Also, in my opinion, just from LARPing, The amp arms provide a secure fitment to your head with your ear pro. This helmet comes with very basic chin straps. It's not like a BOA system on a Team Wendy where you can crank it down to get super tight and snug on your head. So I wanted to make sure that the ears would help hold the thing to my head. Now, can you take off this chin strap system and put on something like a Team Wendy BOA? Absolutely. That's going to be another 130, 140 bucks. You can get an airsoft version for 20 bucks if you want to get crazy. But I know that even though the chin strap system that comes on this isn't the greatest, it is good. And with the amp arms crushing the ear pro down onto my head, it actually holds the whole thing very secure, even with the additional weight of night vision and a counterbalance. But Drew, the amps are super expensive. Yeah, they are. They're over $1,000, and the price is going up every year, it seems like, just because of how much it costs OpsCore to make it. I've been to the OpsCore facility. I've seen how amps are made. It's absolutely incredible. It's space technology kind of stuff. It'll blow your mind. I understand why things like the amps are so darn expensive. But $1,100, $1,200 for an AirPro system for your average consumer is pretty steep, especially when that's the same price as the helmet itself. It's kind of nuts. So 2 years ago, even though I had access to real amps, I jumped into a little experiment, and I kind of feel dirty for it, but I'm glad I did. If you're truly looking to save some money and you want to get superior ballistic protection on your head, you want to have the ability to see at night, and you're trying to figure out a way to budget for a $1,000 ear pro, well, I was going to a lot of MilSim events at the time. And I noticed all these 14, 15-year-old kids running around with amps, and I was like, how in the heck are they affording it? So I asked them. Turns out they weren't real amps. And neither are these. For the past 2 years, I've been running an experiment, and while Josh and a couple of the other guys in our crew have real amps, these are actually the FMA amps that are for airsoft use only. Now, here's what I can say about them. Number one, they're not American made. That makes me feel a little dirty inside, but you know what? I'm willing to try it. I want to see what's actually available to the average everyday person that can't afford $1,000 for a set of ear pro. Now granted, you can buy cheaper ear pro like we talked about earlier, attach it with an Axle Advance adapter, but if you want this like kind of full setup, full feel, these FMAs have not been bad. Are they as good as the real thing? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Will they protect your ears? Yes. Ultimately, these FMAs, they're still a $200 set of ear pro. And they are a $200 set of ear pro. In other words, what you expect to get out of a $200 set of ear protection, you do get. These have held up pretty well. So some of the leads have started to come out. I've had to super glue them in. So as far as durability goes, they're not the greatest, but again, they have survived a lot of rugged use over the course of 2 years. Also, my hearing has not diminished at all in 2 years. Now, did I go to an ear doctor to test this in full disclosure? No, I have not. But I've not experienced any noticeable side effect. And in fact, I think these kind of protect my ears a little bit better than even my sword-ins have. So with that being said, the durability, not that great. The protection to your ears, adequate. In fact, one time I was at an airsoft event, cringe, I know, but I had a buddy who was in first group who did not know how to throw a grenade effectively, and he tried to throw a banger out of a window, banked it off the top of the ceiling, came right down in front of me. I thought I had time to pick it up and throw it out the window, but he prepped the nade. Big no-no. If you're watching this, I forgive you, man. I'm not gonna use your name because I love you. I picked it up, went to throw it back, and it exploded right here while I was using those FMA cheapo knockoff amps. It was so close to my face that it burned me on the side of my face. The burn took almost a year for it to completely go away. It burned my hands, it popped my hands really bad, but I had no damage to my ears whatsoever. So, do they work? Yeah, they work.
I remember this one time when we were at that airsoft event and you were crouched down behind the window and I was pawing off the door because there were dudes that were like crawling up and they were trying to get in the window and you were popping up and you were like, blah, 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 blah. Actually, it was airsoft, so it was like, fit. And then you crouched down and then the guy behind you, who shall remain nameless, he was like, I'm gonna prep a grenade. And we were like, yeah, you go ahead and prep that nade. And then he like prepped the nade and instead of throwing it like this, he pitched it left-handed, backhanded, and it was all like a sissy throw. And I remember watching the grenade go through the air, and then I was expecting it to go through the window, and the next thing I realized, I was like, I don't think that went through the window. And so then I turned back and I saw you, and you were down on the ground, and you were like, ah, ah, and you got it up to about here as you were gonna throw it up out the window, and then I was like, I need, and I backed off, and then I heard boom, and my ears were ringing a little bit, and then I pied back around the corner, and then I saw you, and you were like, blood was already coming down your face, and you were like, oh my gosh, and you were like, I'm good, I'm still in this, and you stood up, and you were like, bah, bah, bah. I mean, and you were like, wait a minute, no, I just got hit by a nade, I'm down, I'm hit, and then we tried to buddy aid you, and we all got overrun. You remember that?
The plastic itself, surprisingly, even though it's supposed to be cheapo Chinese plastic, have actually held up better than my authentic American-made OpsCore and Team Wendy attachments, like plastic attachment pieces. In fact, I had a couple of sets of, back whenever I was running this on a Team Wendy helmet, my official attachments broke. And I actually went out and bought airsoft replacements that have been through more and have held up better. Explain to me how that's possible. I don't know, maybe it's just a one-off, but in my experience, the plastic has actually held up better. I can't explain it. Now the sound quality. The sound quality is nowhere near as good as actual amps. It's just not gonna be there. However, I do have directional sound. I can tell where a sound is coming from. It's not as clear and concise as actual amps, but for a $200 set of EarPro that comes with the down leads that I can plug directly into a radio or to a PTT, they've been awesome. Now, am I gonna get rid of these? Probably. Am I gonna upgrade or sell these on tax swap and upgrade to actual amps soon? Yeah, I am, just because I can now. But at the time, I didn't want my ears to hold me back from being able to start using all this stuff and start acquiring these skill sets. And I'm actually pretty glad I ran that test and tried these cheapo ears out for myself. And you can too, or you can buy high quality ears like Sordin's and just attach them with the Axle Advanced adapter. So in terms of how I have the rest of this set up, so I have DTMVS's from Steel Industries on here. This helmet does not come with any kind of retention straps, which is a little bit annoying, but to be honest, with all the other helmets I've had, I haven't been super impressed with the retention straps or lanyards, right? So what I've done here is I've added a Coyote Tactical Solutions helmet cover here, which it's actually not a helmet cover. I can't remember the name of it. We'll throw it up in the description. But it simply goes onto the Velcro, and this is where I get my retention lanyards from. On my DTNVS's here, I've added little rings for retention hooks. Just like that, it's kind of solved. This is something I would add to a helmet anyway. So on this thing, I have a little pack back here. Again, this is all one unit from Coyote Tactical Solutions. And what I have back here is a little counterweight, little sandbag, and you can buy these pretty much anywhere, or you can throw like little lead weights in there and really cater it to your night vision if you're running PVS 14 or dual tubes, or a PVS 14 plus a thermal clip on. You can really just cater this to what you need. And on the back of that, I have a really cheap Theorem cell vault, and this holds additional batteries because at the moment I don't have a battery pack for these nods. It would require another $400 adapter, and it's just, I like just putting a battery in, running it till it's dead, throwing a fresh one in, and on top of that, pretty much everything else on my equipment runs CR123s. So this holds a couple CR123s. I simply strap it into the back here, and I'm good to go. It keeps it out of the moisture, it keeps it dry. I can pop that off, give it to a friend, put it in another piece of kit if I'm actually not running my helmet or night vision. For lights, because this doesn't have a rail system, it makes it pretty simple. I need to Velcro my light on here somewhere, right? So I went with the Streamlight Sidewinder, which is actually pretty nifty and inexpensive. I think it's like 120 bucks, something like that. Color and IR light. It also has an IR strobe on the top. You can change it from red to green to blue to white light to IR only, and its functions are pretty simple, and you can move it around to be a really good small admin light. It's not super powerful, but I don't like super powerful lights on my helmet anyway. Now, my buddy Derek Freimeyer from Drop 6 also has an MTEK stripe, and he has his setup significantly different than mine, although not too different because, again, this is a simple system. He put one of the new Wilcox G69s on his with a shroud with a little insert here to keep it all nice and flush. Really nice upgrade in my opinion. I like this G69 quite a bit. He also put a Sidewinder on this side. He kind of chopped this up to make it contour, make it more, visually appealing, which is the most important part of all of this. But I don't know how much he's actually going to use this one. What he's done over here, I'm really impressed with. He's put a Streamlight Vampire over here on this left side, and he's attached it to the M-LOK slot that you would normally attach your amps to. And he's put it on an SLS Precision light mount, which moves and contours. And I really like how he can push this flat up against his helmet. I don't like things sticking out, like it just feels weird, although the Sidewinder is actually not bad. I thought it was going to be a lot more just kind of bulky and obtrusive and like snag on things. It hasn't done that so far. But this little system right here is pretty incredible, and I like it a lot. Now, you'll notice this takes up the slot for the EarPro. That's a problem. I'm sure it will be remedied by some company in the future where they can create a little offset M-LOK slot that comes up off of that so you can continue to run amp arms. But Derek is not running this like I'm running it. Derek has he's big into low-vis stuff. He likes low-vis, lightweight stuff, and what he is doing is he is running a Silynx in-ear system. So he actually just puts this on his head, doesn't attach any ears, and runs in-ears directly into his ear canal. I think that's what you call it. Has it rigged up to a simple PTT, goes into his radio, and he's good to go. So even though this helmet is a very simple system, it does afford enough flexibility to do what you want. So those are a couple of reasons I went with the Strike. Am I being paid to say this? Absolutely not. I wish I was, because I'm a fan. I spent my own money on this, and it was worth it. I'm glad I've done it. This is not, confirmation bias. I'm not making this video to justify my purchase. I'm simply telling you my thought process going into this and why I chose this helmet. Are other helmets good? Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to buy this. In fact, pretty much any level 3A American-made helmet is going to be about the same. But you could also go with some old ACH or Mitch style helmets. I got this for $30. It has a mount for your night vision. You could put some Velcro on the back of it for a counterweight for the night vision. You can add in your own pads. You don't need the Gucciest of the Gucci to get started. Although, if you go that route, I don't think you'll be disappointed. So, do civilians need ballistic helmets? Not today. Do you need an AR-15? Probably not today. Do you need a concealed carry pistol? Most likely you won't need it today. Do you need medical training? Probably not today. But that's not the point. That's not what we're doing here. We're not preparing for today. We're preparing for tomorrow and the day after, and our kids to have that exact same mindset and pass that down to their kids. Most of us who are here, we are first generation dirty civilians. Maybe you're like me or Josh or any of the guys in our crew, and your family kind of liked this stuff. They were hunters, they owned guns, but this level of proficiency and this level of equipment was not something on their radar, and also wasn't very accessible to them at the time. So in a very odd way, you are the first generation of your kind. So what do you actually want to pass down to your kids? Maybe the helmet will be out of date by the time your kid gets it, by the time your son grows into it. Maybe the rifles and the technology, maybe all that stuff is out of date. But it's the purpose behind these tools that is the most important. It's something our founding fathers understood. George Washington knew it. Sam Adams knew it. All these guys, they understood why this is so important and why you, as a normal person, this is your birthright. Not just owning the stuff, but being the kind of person that knows how and when to use it when the time comes. So, if you have any questions, hit us up, team@dirtycivilian.com. You can hit up our website, dirtycivilian.com, for more resources and pictures and gear. Our Patreon subscribers, thank you so much. If you have questions, Patreon is the quickest way to contact us. And guys, we love you. Please focus on what matters most. Get your priorities in check. It may not be this ballistic helmet. It may be food, it may be water. You gotta figure that out for yourself.